Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 51 of the Coffee Squad podcast. Jake, do you realize what next week is? You have no idea, do you? It's week 52, which means it'll be our 1-year anniversary. Can you believe that?
Holy smokes.
Wow.
Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah, and I don't think we started this off as fun, but it's kind of grown into being something fun. So, wow, 52. That's awesome. Good job, Will.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about is social media safe? I know I have my opinions, but we'll kind of find out from an expert over here with Scott. And Scott's been with us before, but Jake, I'm going to let you introduce Scott since you've known him.
So Scott and I are good buddies. We've worked together in the past at another company, and Scott and I kind of both went different directions. But Scott is a project manager for a major data collection company. Scott has decades of experience conducting online searches on individuals and companies. So, for our past listeners, you've heard Scott. I think this is your fourth time, I want to say, Scott being on the show.
Third or fourth, something like that.
Yeah, so Scott, again, he's used to us. He's used to the show. So
he's an honorary member of the Coffee Squad. So
definitely appreciate him joining us.
Excitement there, Scott. Calm down.
Yeah, So, glad to have you on, Scott. And thanks again for always sharing and being willing to share your expertise with our viewers and our listeners out there.
No worries. Fun to chat about it all, and we all learn something from everybody anyway. So that's
except for Will. We don't learn crap from him.
No. I'm just OTFing most of the time. So hanging on,
Will,
trying to keep up. Yeah.
Wow, Scott and everyone, with what you're drinking today with your subtle hints. Come on.
I'm drinking a Tangerine LaCroix sparkling water.
Whoa, where the hell's the coffee at?
It's right here. I got it.
Okay.
Drinking some Black Rifle Atomic Orca, which is a Papua New Guinea washed medium roast, hints of cocoa and a little bit of fruit back end notes, good stuff. I like pretty much almost everything I've ever had from Black Rifle. So it's one of their subscription, special subscription people get them first, whatever, their exclusive subscription. I think that's what they're called.
Oh, you're
I'm exclusive. Pinkies up, right?
Yes. Such a snob. Scott, what are you drinking, bud?
Just a little K-cup of some Illy coffee from the local grocery store. That's it. Nothing fancy from me. But I do have my my awesome mug. That's
what she said. Nice.
Love it. You know who else likes Illy coffee is Hannah. Hannah is one of our Intel analysts. She does a phenomenal job, but she's a big fan of Illy coffee. And I wonder if that's just because overseas, that was one of the more easier brands, like decent brands that you could get overseas, over in the Middle East and stuff. So awesome.
All right. What about you, Jake? What kind of ketosis drink are you drinking this morning?
First, it's keto. If you're gonna try and correct me and make fun of me. So I'm just drinking a keto. I don't know what flavor this is. Couldn't tell you. And I don't have COVID. I can taste it. I just can't tell you what the flavor is. Like, fruit punch. There it goes. That's hit a fruit punch in the back there, Will. And a peppermint tea. So I'm kind of feeling under the weather, but I can taste everything. I can smell everything. So I don't have COVID. At least I don't think I do.
Well, not everybody loses. So you might have the vid.
Will, again, dark gray cloud, always around Will, always trying to Cheerios, man.
Negative Nancy.
We got to have one,
I've been called Eeyore before, so.
Well, cool. Well, let's jump into the topic of social media and, how to keep it safe.
All right.
And this is just for your average users, right? Yeah. Like Will, myself, Scott, and then I also think an important we're going to talk about a little bit is, our children, teenagers and children, just a little bit. So,
so when I was researching this, I kind of came across this Netflix documentary called The Social Dilemma. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it was interesting. It raises a lot of ethical questions, because these companies are essentially using the tracking and stuff to to sell all your information to the advertisers, and they're using it to kind of manipulate and influence how you think and how you buy things and all this stuff. And it's kind of interesting to watch. And then later on last week, I was watching a podcast on YouTube, and they simultaneously stream on Facebook Live. And the guys were on there talking about, how Facebook is tracking. And one of the guys said, well, this is how you kind of turn it off. So, limit what they're doing. And he started going through the steps on how to do it. And about 2 to 3 minutes into his little walkthrough on how to do it, Facebook Live completely shut them off, cut them out, and banned that episode from even being anywhere on Facebook. And, I don't know how that works, if that's it, but it's kind of funny how they're still live on YouTube. You can still find the episode on YouTube, but on Facebook, it's like non-existent. So
crazy. Well, first off, Will, let me, I'm really disappointed in you that you're watching another podcast besides ours. I feel like you've cheated on us.
It's called product research, Jake. You got
you call it what you want. I call it cheating. I think we need to go to counseling for that. But no, interesting, man.
Correct me if you're wrong, but you're the one who went on another podcast.
Hey,
I didn't know about that.
With this kind of face and this knowledge, man, who wouldn't want me on there?
Well, luckily that one wasn't on video; it was only audio recorded. So,
well, thanks, Will. Again, gray cloud, man. Gray cloud all over you. No, I think that's interesting. To me, it's like, hey, Facebook, and I don't want to get in a whole discussion but it's a private company. So they can kind of do what they want, when they want, and how they want. And if you don't like it, don't use them. That's just my thought process. It's just like going into a store, or a restaurant, if you don't like the way you're treated don't go back and give them service again. So
that's right. Like why do people get mad whenever they voluntarily put their stuff out there? They can do what they want with their data, because you've given them the data. Now it's up to them what they're going to do with it. If you don't like it, don't be part of it. It's truly what it is. Moving forward with that,
Scott, you and I have talked about, what is it, clickbait, ad bait, that kind of stuff in the past. Right. I think a lot of your major companies do that. They want to see, hey, if you're a golfer, right? And you predominantly go to Golf Galaxy or any of the golf websites or anything like that, well, you're probably going to see more advertisements for golf clubs, golf balls. I know I do, or fishing, the same thing. So kind of whatever you're interested in, especially on social media, when you type that search in, you're going to get some of that stuff.
Yeah, and you've subscribed to it. Like you think about where this stuff originates from is, you go to a big box store, you sign up for their, points, or you sign up for their member cards, anything free. It really it starts the data collection at that point. Just like Facebook, it's free, right? You chime in, you give them your information, you get something back. But if it's free, as we've always said, if it's free, you're selling your data to them.
Yeah. What's the saying?
Sell it.
If you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
Exactly. And it starts with those even with those points cards. People don't realize that is as soon as you swipe that membership card, they know what you're buying. They're sharing that information, and who really reads the fine print? I don't. I can honestly say I don't. But you got to.
Well, we know Will can barely read, so we know he doesn't. So.
I definitely have to read with my shoes off to keep count. So.
Yeah, I think we mentioned Michael Basil last week, and he does a podcast, OSINT. And one thing he was talking about, those rewards cards and those points cards, is he used to use the number, and I forget what it was, but it was like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now the stores have caught on to that. And so he's using a different number, and he recommends everyone kind of do that, but they don't like that because it messes up their algorithm.
Right.
So
there's ways to circumvent it, but then, now you're starting to talk about, convenience over security. You don't have the convenience of getting that email that you might enjoy, or, it's just, you're limiting your exposure for security, but then you don't get the benefits of what they're trying to give you. So it's
so I was thinking, if he does that, right? So one of the major grocery stores out here is Harris Teeter, and now they have gas pumps. So I know every month, by the end of the month, halfway through the month, that's where we buy our groceries, I usually get, at least 40 cents off a gallon. And right now that's huge because, since the start,
jacked up.
In the middle of January, it's gone up at least 40 cents. So it's like back to around $2 a gallon. So if everyone got on the same thing, I wonder how many fuel points. But then someone could, well, you're only allowed $50 max at the pump. But, so like Scott's saying, you would lose out on those points to someone. If you're all using a co-op point number, those points would slowly go away. So I just give an old phone number.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of doing it too. Use something that you used to have. However, some of that can still be tracked back to you if somebody really wanted to look into you. But that's another thing to talk about is, although you may be security conscious in mind, what's the reason for somebody to look into you or expose your data in that way? Does anybody have a reason for it?
Yeah. So before we hop into the main topic, okay. Well, I just wanted to touch base on the Apple Facebook thing that's going on right now. We were talking about it a little bit. So from what I understand, Apple is not happy with the way Facebook is kind of using their users' data, and they're threatening to take the Facebook app off their platform. Do you know anything about that, or maybe can expand on that, Scott?
No, I've heard it in the news just as much as you guys. It really and it makes sense. If you even think back a few years ago with San Bernardino when they had the active shooter there in California, they were able to recover the phones from that incident, and Apple didn't even allow access to the phone, even though they could have broken into it. They're very security conscious. They're very private. Which that's one reason why I kind of stick with Apple with the majority of my stuff, just for that reason, But then again, Facebook is we already said it. They're a private company. They're choosing to go that direction. And if you want to partake in it, then so be it. But I guess Apple needs to be still conscious of their privacy core if they were their moral privacy thought. So I mean it'll be interesting to watch it kind of develop out, but don't have much to add on that really.
Well, I think that's what that Netflix documentary was about, kind of bringing up the ethical dilemma that people have and that so let's, like Jake said, let's jump in. Kind of how safe is social media? How secure is it? I know I was reading something where a whole bunch of users' information got hacked by a Chinese server that was holding them. So how secure is social media?
Well, it's only as secure as you make it, right? Out of the box, it's not secure at all. It's funny, and I think we'll probably get into it, but I'll have aunts, uncles, people a little bit older than me, I'll get a message or something from them in Facebook that I just know it's not them. Right. And I'm like, immediately I know that their account's been hacked. It's like, and with that, I don't click it. I just delete it immediately. I try to get a hold of them some other way, some other method for them to hopefully secure their account a little bit more. But, there's so much data in the internet and being shared on social media. You could click a link and you wouldn't even know it until it's too late and your account's already hacked, or somebody's duplicated that account and found your friends list. And it's not secure, especially with the majority of the public not using password managers and maintaining their login credentials in a proper and secure manner. It's not secure. It may be secure for you and me. Maybe secure you and me, but not everybody, because they don't put security up front when they're managing their social media.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot with like social media influencers and the famous people and stuff. They get a lot of their accounts duplicated and try to, and people start following them. The next thing you know, everybody who followed that duplicate account is hacked and they're compromised and stuff like that.
That's right.
So is there some that are considered, I guess, safer or more secure than others? Like I know TikTok was kind of, there was some, the last president was talking about, banning TikTok because it was held by Chinese servers and stuff like that. So,
right. I wouldn't say one's more secure over the other, because the bottom line is the internet is Well, it's the Internet of Things, right? We're all connected, different countries, global, right? It's global. It really boils down to the individual's, privacy and what they put out there and how they manage their security at the individual level. I think, using TikTok or using, Facebook, there's nothing that would be different from the other, because you're honestly putting your information out there. And I wouldn't say one's more secure than the other. That's my opinion.
Okay.
There's probably technical, portions of that is where is the data being housed, but still, the data is being put out there by you. So really, it's not secure at all because you're putting it out there. It's like if I left, $100 out on my front porch, is it secure? No, it's not. But I may be watching it, but guess what? It's out there. Somebody can go take it.
Yeah.
I think even more to that, Scott. I think it's like putting $100 out there with a sign up there saying, "Hey, here's $100." I mean, that's what social media is. It's, whether you're saying, "Hey, I'm going on vacation," right? I see that a ton. Hey, can't wait for my vacation to Cancun or wherever we're going. I think I just said Cancun because of Ted Cruz, but wherever they're going, it's like, man, you have just opened up. Especially if your account, if you go through, and we're talking about Facebook, but Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, all of them, right? If you, like Scott's been saying, go through those settings. You can adjust your privacy settings. You can have it for the whole world to see, or just your friends who you're friends with or friends of friends to do. But remember, when you post, if you respond to a huge post, you've just opened up your profile to other people. They may not be able to directly look at it, but they can actually look at, whatever your picture is and get a little bit of information on you. So
right. You mentioned like the settings, right? So here recently, you guys have seen how Facebook is now you're sharing your Facebook data with other login credentials. So going back to like the convenience over security, like you'll get maybe you ever get those notifications where you can sign in through a third party and say use Facebook for sign in because it's much easier, right? You're like, oh, I can just use my Facebook account to sign in to, whatever or another organization that you're using or company. And what you just did is you shared your social media profile and attributes with that company. So now they can go in and say, oh, well, he likes or she likes, REI, they like this certain amount of food or this grocery store where they checked in or they bought this, or they're using all of that data to now, go back into the ad tech or the advertising data to now sell you things. So when a few years ago, we're like, man, is Amazon, listening to us? Like I have an Alexa. Are they listening to us? Because I just talked about, wanting to get this super awesome, chef knife, but now I'm getting all these feeds on my Facebook, where all you did was you searched for it on your browser, and now your browser is sharing that with Facebook. So they're all intertwined. They're all talking. So going back to the settings, man, you've got to go in and you've got to turn that stuff off unless you like being targeted for certain, product advertisement. That's the biggest thing now. But they're not listening to you. You're telling them what you want,
Yeah.
So what steps can you take to kind of protect yourself, your social media profile? What can you do?
Well, just, be aware that the default settings are not conducive to security. Do not go in there and say, well, I've got a real strong password, I'm good, right? Well, no, it's the settings behind the curtain. So go into settings, read each one. It's out there, because when the man was in front of Congress a few years ago, they had to put security and privacy up front, but then people are still choosing to ignore this stuff. So what I recommend is go in there, read the settings, every line. And if it sounds fishy, if you don't like it, turn it off. Or if you want it, keep it on. on. I mean, it's really up to that individual.
And I would suggest that after every update, you go back into the settings and change and make sure that they didn't change them, because sometimes when you do the update, they revert back to the default settings.
That's right. And, they do change things regularly too. Like just for that browser setting that I was just, speaking about earlier, I didn't know that stuff was there. And then I went in one day and I'm like, oh man, this stuff's been wide open. I need to lock it down again, and every platform's different, right? Yep. We're talking Facebook a lot here, but, all the other platforms, if you choose to use them, they all are going to use your privacy a little bit differently.
Yeah, I have Snapchat. I don't even know what it's for, so I don't even use it. I have it, but I don't use it. So
I'd say we probably talk about Facebook the most because of our age, right? If we were talking to like my nieces and nephews who are in their teens and 20s, it's probably Instagram. I think the younger generation uses Instagram more than Facebook, even though they're same company, it's just a little bit different of a platform.
Yeah, and for Instagram, let's talk about that for a minute. Is the younger generation, if you're locked down, right? If your account's locked down, you're not as open to find additional followers, and before you know it, you're like, well, nobody's following me on Instagram. Like, I don't care, right? But the younger generation, that's how they get their name out there. That's how they get credibility, whatever it may be, to make them feel better about what they've got going on social media. They're going to open up their account, and when they open up their account, of course, now they're vulnerable to outside influences, etc. And like you mentioned earlier, Jake, children, right? And how are they being exposed to this age that we live in?
Well, speaking of likes and stuff, I was watching something. They're talking about how it's kind of changed the brain chemistry and how we get that self-gratification type thing, like by like buttons, like, oh, somebody likes me because they liked my post. And so that's kind of changed the way people act and do stuff on social media too. I didn't mean to cut you off, Jake. Go ahead.
I can't remember what I was going to say, man. So it doesn't really matter. Oh, you're talking about the kids and the likes and the brain waves and all that kind of stuff. I've read different reports from psychologists about one theory that's out there with, you see a lot of teen suicides are a lot higher over the last, 5-10 years. I can't remember the exact time frame. And one theory is social media is a contributor because kids are seeing their friends or, I don't want to call it make-believe, but someone else has a better life, and why don't I get that better life? And you hear it on advertising a lot. I mean, I hate the word deserve, but you hear deserve thrown out there a ton, and so this one article, and I've read a few articles on it, but these kids are feeling like they deserve. They may have low-income parents or average American parents where they can't go on these fancy vacations, or they don't, the kids that when they turn 16 either don't get a car, don't get a fancy car, or they don't get into college or these high colleges. And so children's self-esteem is starting to drastically decline because the theory is because of social media and the comparison instead of just, I don't know, well, I went to school, we didn't have social media. So you knew the rich kids, you knew the poor kids, you knew the average kids, you knew everybody, right? And so it didn't really matter. What they had, you just usually stuck within your circle. And I think that's perfect timing. Scott, I saw your daughter boop, right about to pop in as we're talking about kids. So good save. Good stiff arm.
Facebook happy. Facebook happy, and you're right. They compare themselves to other individuals and there's really no comparison when it comes to that, because it all is fabricated for the most part, and who's going to post, sad stuff? Not the majority of people anyway,
I'm going to do a study, see how many people follow me just off like some just boo-hoo crybaby type stuff. It's funny because social media is a complete opposite of our normal media. Our normal media is all about doom and gloom, kind of like Will, right? Doom and gloom, gray clouds, the U.S. is falling apart or this or that, whatever you subscribe to.
It's clickbait.
But then if you look at social media, it's the complete opposite of look what I have, look at me, look at me, look at me kind of a thing.
It's true.
I just thought of that, what a weird dichotomy there. So talk about friends. And Scott, you hit on this just a little bit. What are some some steps or some things that people can do. Friend requests. How do you limit those? I know Will was telling me that he gets a lot of these weird like friend requests from like females out there, and he doesn't know how to stop them. So how can you stop that?
Well, I don't think he has that problem.
I don't. Jake keeps using my information. That's the problem.
Oh, well, I tell you what. Like, if you're getting those requests, a lot of that is, and from what I've noticed, is your friends are beginning to let those bots or those profiles into their friends category. So then, of course, they're going to be targeting you as well. One is you definitely need to ignore it. Just go ahead and delete it. Don't fall into the trap and think that it's somebody or somebody or somebody you should know. Ignore it. Look at your settings again, because there could be something in there that has changed. The fact that they're finding you through friends, because you can see, it's who can see your profiles, friends of friends, stuff like that. Because that allows them to now see your profile, and then they can start to target you as somebody. Because you let them in, that's usually the first level of about to get your account hacked or taken over or something, or duplicated. Because they can always save your profile photo and go ahead and make another one. So yeah, you need to ignore those, check privacy settings. You can even investigate it if you want to go a little bit further, investigate it, see who liked that person or who's now associated with that, who's a friend of that. Reach out to that person, be like, hey man, I noticed that you're friending this. It's most likely a bot or some kind of, fake account. I recommend you unfollow this person or whatever it may be. That's something you can do to kind of take care of your friends and family as well.
Yeah, I know you talked about having them like do a duplicate friend request. I've got one of that from a buddy of mine a couple of months ago. Well, yeah, about a month or two ago. And as soon as they came up, I was like, that's weird. Why did he change the name was different. It was his name, but he dropped part of his name. The picture was different, but it was still a picture of him. So I contacted him. I was like, hey man, did you create another account? He's like, no, why? I was like, well, you got hacked. Somebody's trying to use you as a duplicate. Yep. So he's able to go in there and get it off, but had someone not told him about it, because I know at least 3 or 4 of my other friends had, because we're all friends, had already liked that new account. And so I had to I kind of say, hey, you guys need to check your stuff, because no.
Yep. No, that's a good thing you did that.
On Instagram, that's where I get probably the most like fake friends requests, even though I have that thing locked down. And Scott, I think kind of reiterate your point is, whenever I get a friend request, it doesn't matter on Facebook, even LinkedIn, it doesn't matter on any social media. I immediately like, how do I know this person? Where is that degree of separation at? And if there isn't a degree of separation, look, if you're a friend of mine and I haven't accepted a friend request, 2 things: either I don't like you anymore, or I didn't recognize. So
that's why you haven't accepted my request. Gotcha. Okay.
Very well. I mean, I don't want all those nasty bots that you like keep clicking on following me, bud.
So Scott, I do have, you talked about how only click on people or you somewhat know. I know LinkedIn though is kind of different, because
that's gonna bring it up.
I know I get a lot of requests from people in the industry that I have no idea who it is, but they're trying to connect because we're in the same industry. So
right. And that's the that's the downfall of LinkedIn, right? So you can still, if you're anybody with just a little bit of common sense, you can look into that profile or send them a message and see if it's real. You're going to have to open up if you want to investigate or broaden your connection base or get to know other people in the industry. You're going to have to open up your LinkedIn. That's my opinion a little bit, just kind of thinking outside the box. You're definitely going to have to do that if you want to broaden your connection base. If you don't, then keep it locked down. But yeah, that's the thing, is you have to kind of look into that person's persona, if you will, that account, see if it's credible. If it looks like it's just a templated, account, then you probably should ignore it or block it or say this person isn't a real person, whatever it may be. But yeah, LinkedIn is definitely a more difficult one to have.
Well, it's risk versus reward, right? That's what all this really boils down to. How much risk are you willing to accept for that reward that you're hoping to get? I think a few tips on LinkedIn is, I was guilty of this, but if you look at if you put your resume up there, what does your resume say? It gives your whole work history of probably the last 10 plus years. Usually has your name up there. And most people put their address, email address, and phone number. So right there, you've just given out a ton of information.
That's right.
On you.
Yeah, and when doing online investigations, LinkedIn is the first one that usually gives you the majority of your launching points. When you're really conducting those investigations, if they're on LinkedIn, it's really easy to collect the rest, because LinkedIn really does open it up for you, especially if you have upgraded accounts. Like they have a sales navigator to where, if you upgrade your account to that, then you're able to kind of look into these individuals a little bit more covertly. If they won't see that you're searching them, you can be more hidden in the shadows. You can kind of look more in depth into their account, gather that information, and then kind of broaden out from there. But yeah, LinkedIn that's the golden nugget. If you're doing an investigation, you definitely hope they have one.
Yeah,
well, most of the time, people either especially in the industry, you're either friends with people that know them or they're friends of friends, and you can kind of like tell pretty easily if they're legit or not. Except for the salesmen, they're pretty good at sneaking in when they want to sell something. But
so we've talked about the social media and locking down your accounts. I think hopefully for our viewers and our listeners out there, they understand, like, hey, go into the settings, read each one, like Scott was saying, understand it. If you don't understand it, guess what? There's this awesome thing, since you're already on the internet, called Google, where you can almost probably cut that little line, put it in Google, and find out what exactly it's saying. I'm going to say my word: do your due diligence on everything you do. So if it's something you're not comfortable with, shut it down. And so I think we've gotten a pretty good understanding of, hey, everyone go into your settings, secure them for you. If you have a spouse, same thing, and your children. And we'll talk about children a little bit later. But let's talk about pictures now. I know everyone likes to post their, I said earlier, their fancy Cancun vacation pictures again, except for Ted Cruz right now. He's not posting anything about his great vacation down there, his one-day trip and his family's trip. But everyone likes to do it. They like, their new car, their new house, family photos, whatever it is. Scott, can you talk about like pictures and the risks, what's a good picture to share and what's probably not a good to share, and the risks that are involved with any picture on social media?
Yeah, well, we can talk about a little bit about metadata. Is a lot of the stuff, especially with cell phones, if you're taking a picture with a cell phone and you have location services turned on and all that stuff is pretty much set by default, or when you first started your phone and you just said allow and just get to using the thing, most likely you enabled a lot of that stuff. So if you take a picture, there's metadata associated with that. You share that information out on the open internet, whether it's social media or email or whatever. Those images have those locations set for it. So you're voluntarily dishing that stuff out there. So with that, I mean, images are really, just like they say, it's worth 1,000 words, right? Pictures are worth 1,000 words. All those images can really tell a story if somebody was really wanting to look into you and your life, or your family's life, to gain more information. Whether it's the images that you're selling your house on Zillow, all that stuff can paint a pretty good picture. Your images on social media, say you have a wide open account, so now I have your images of your Zillow, now I have the images of your social media, your friends, your family. I can really gain more information about you, whether I want to steal your identity or, you know, compromise something that you have going on. Maybe you made me angry and I'm kind of like, you know, I want to get back at you and kind of ruin your life. I can, you know, can do that with a lot of these images in conjunction with your social media profile. So yeah, images are definitely they're not as safe as people think they are. You got to be kind of careful with how much you put on there and the settings that you have on your devices that labels those photos on the background.
I'm glad you brought up Zillow. You taught me this, you know, in your company that's done helped us with some investigations on individuals, but Zillow it's a treasure mine just as good, you know. You may think that, hey, there's an innocent photo, a family picture, you and your buddies at a wedding, and now we got, you know, if we're looking at it for a certain individual, again, this is all publicly available information. This is information that you are sharing out there, free will. And so there's nothing you can really do to stop it except for not share it. And so, yeah, using, you know, being able to dig in on photos, like Scott said, is huge, especially for, you know, investigations on people and companies.
Yep.
Yep.
So what about like birthdays? You know, I know on Facebook, obviously we're going to talk about Facebook a lot. You know, you talk about, oh, it's my birthday. Is there, what kind of identity theft concerns should you have when you're sharing information like that?
Yeah, I mean that really goes unsaid, right? That's one major thing. Just a real quick story, because I still don't know how this happened, but last week, like you guys know, I have my own drone photography business that I kind of do on the side too. And with that, I have a credit card. I don't use a credit card, like barely. I use it if I do. And it's a business card. Like I know I don't put it on anything. I don't associate with anything. But you know, that credit card was compromised, and I have no idea. I still don't know how I did it, or you know, where it was linked. Not sure how, but it was compromised, and somebody decided to go spend $900 somewhere after trying it with a, you know, $1 type of purchase first. They kind of test the card, and it's all entered manually. So, you know, the bank calls me and says, "Hey, this has been exposed." And I'm like, which card is that? I'm like digging through my wallet. I'm like, I don't know which card that is. And I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's the business card. Like, how did that get, you know, how? And I still don't know how that was, how they managed to do that. Maybe I bought something on Amazon one time and you know, it was linked to a vendor that was, you know, less than, you know, perfect. Who knows? But that just shows you like how easy, you know, data can be kind of put out there and collected upon. Now your birthdays, you know, that's if I was to open up an account in your name, Will, you know, one piece of that pie I would need to know is your birthday, right? Now probably on top of that would be your address, which I can probably get through, you know, social media. If I had your phone number, I can find your address. If I have your address, I can find, you know, other information from you. So it's just putting that puzzle together. And if they have your birthday, that's a big one. That's a real big one to then start building this puzzle out. So yeah, you definitely don't want to put your birthday out there. And not to tangent off of this too much, but with social media, people think it's kind of these fun games, right? Where it's like, you know, that it's, what month were you born in? You're, you know, this type of animal or some crazy stuff like that. And people are thinking it's kind of fun. However, you break that stuff down, that's really starting to populate other information about you, you know, that whomever started that link or that game, they're just on the back end collecting that information. You know, so you definitely don't partake in that stuff, even though, you know, all of your friends are doing it. Resist putting your information out there, because it's wide open for people to kind of dissect and figure that out.
Well, I know a lot of people think that just if you don't put your full birthday, they can't get it. But, you know, if you have just your date, your month and day, you know, let's say January 23rd is when your birthday, right? Well, all they got to do is look at when you graduated high school or college, and you got about a 3-year window that they can kind of go through and kind of narrow it down. And it's not hard to a little bit of research and open source stuff to kind of hone in and figure out what it is.
Yeah,
that's right.
So I think another thing along with birthdays is, so I have a nephew. He's like 13. Last year, he thought it'd be funny to change his birthday on social media. Well, I thought I was a horrible uncle on his birthday, right? So I went to Amazon, sent him a birthday gift, prime it out there so he gets it in 2 days. My sister's like, what? Like, what? His birthday's not till November. This is probably like May last year. Grant put it as his birthday. Like, I thought it was and so he got other birthday gifts. So again, kudos to Grant. Like, great job. And tricking your aunts and uncles and other people for birthday gifts a little bit sooner or more. But the other thing I like to see, or I don't like to see, but I see a lot of people do it. I was guilty of this at one point in time. Is when's your birthday? Facebook's going to hit you up of, hey, it's your birthday. Do you want to raise money for? And again, a lot with military charities, right, and first responder charities. So they'll bring them up and. I think one year is like $1,000. So I raised like $1,500 for my birthday, right? But then how are people paying for that? And I'm not saying don't do it. What I am, don't be charitable, but just be careful. I always, and Scott, I'd love to get your advice on this, but I always use PayPal. Whenever I do, if I can use PayPal on anything online, I do it. For me, it's like that second barrier, I guess. What's your thought? Maybe that's just an illusion or a placebo thing that I do, but
no, I mean, bank transfers or PayPal, they're secure as well. PayPal has actually gotten better over the last 5-6 years. I remember when it first started off, it was like one of the first accounts that seemed to get compromised on my end
all the
regularly.
time.
There was I get an email like, oh, somebody's trying to sign into your PayPal account, and it's like, what the heck? I just changed my password. Funny enough is every time I use PayPal, it makes me change my password, like literally every time. So I know they're kind of putting security up front at this point. And Venmo is a subsidiary of PayPal too. So if you use Venmo, it's like using PayPal. So definitely secure. But you still got to maintain your level of security at the first level, and that would be your passwords.
Yeah.
Do you use the same passwords? We've talked about this before, I think, is use the same passwords for everything. You're probably not doing a very good job or your due diligence on yourself, right? So I'm a big proponent of password managers, making sure that all your passwords are different. You change them regularly. And regularly is probably more, not every 5 years, but maybe every year you switch it up. Cool thing about password managers, not to tangent too much off of it, is they will help you develop a nice strong password automatically. So you don't have to remember them. You can just go in, copy it, paste it into your whatever, and then use it moving forward. It's a good way of maintaining all your passwords, in my opinion. Better than the notepad that grandma would have underneath her keyboard with all the passwords. Not good.
Or the whiteboard in Jake's room that has all the passwords and links on everything. So.
Or the one password over on the side there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Will.
So now they got to change it. So let's move on to kind of talk about protecting your children from online predators. I know I saw something where this 13-year-old girl was kind of duped into leaving school early, and a 22-year-old guy picked her up and took her to a hotel. Luckily, the deputy was on top of it, and he was able to get to her and find her before the 22-year-old was able to do anything. But could have gone a lot worse than what it did. So let's talk about some precautions that we can take to do that.
It's scary, man.
Alleviate that. Yeah.
It's scary. Like I have twin girls, and they're in grade school, and they both have iPads. They're messing around online, and there's things you can do as far as the parents concerned, lock down your internet, etc. But what are they truly like getting involved with. Both of them are playing like Roblox, and they like to, run around with one another. Like they see each other on their iPads. They're like, hey, let's go into this room. Let's talk to this person. And it's like, who are you talking to?
Yep.
And I think that it just boils down to being a parent, really, and like kind of wondering and getting involved and seeing who they're talking to, what are they saying, stuff like that. Even Facebook Messenger has it for kids too, so yeah, it's really getting involved. But it's funny, one of my daughters, she's like subscribing to certain YouTube channels and stuff. I'm like, holy cow, like what are they getting involved with? You gotta check on them, man. I don't know if there's a way to alleviate it from their life completely. You just can't do that, because they're going to be involved with the internet more than we were. So you just got to be careful and kind of watch out, take care of your kids.
I think it's a lot like gun safety.
Yeah.
Like I think Perfect. If you teach your children, like, and again, each to their own, but gun safety, cyber safety for children, like Scott's saying, it's for us older people, we didn't have it. So we didn't have to go through these issues that our children are going through now. There's a decent little website called kidshealth.org. And it talks just about and there's a section just on internet safety, and it talks about cyberbullying, and then it talks about like internet safety laws, and then online protection tools. And I think one of the great things that this website says, and I'm going to read it verbatim here, is right after online protection tools, it says getting involved in kids' online activities. And more important than blocking objectionable material is teaching your kids safe and responsible online behavior and keeping an eye on their internet use. And I think that sums up exactly what you're saying, Scott, is we can, as a parent, you can block as much as you want. Kids are smart. I mean, they can figure out, whether intentionally or unintentionally, they can figure out, workarounds and ways to get around that. So luckily, I mean, my kids are younger, but at some point, it's going to happen. It's almost like the birds and the bees talk, right? You're going to have an internet talk. Hopefully not as uncomfortable with that, but like, hey, this is what's out there, and this is why we're doing this, and these are the rules, and set up rules. And then, like Scott was saying, be a parent, check on your kids. If you just hand your kids an iPad and you don't lock it down and you're not following up on them, you're doing a risk. You're opening up that risk. It's getting bigger and bigger. I think, Will, your story with the little girl 13-year-old girl, again, goes photos, right? On her social media account, did she have a picture of where she went to school? Did she say, hey, I'm a student at, XYZ school, wherever she was? And it just makes it a little easier and easier. Then it's, online chatting and everything else. So it's scary. I have a little sister's an FBI agent. I've said that a few times on this show, and she used to work, and she still works a little bit, human trafficking. And her big thing is like, get off social media, like kids off of social media. That's their biggest, it's like when you're fishing, right? You put the biggest, brightest lure on there to catch, a fish. Yeah. Predators do the same thing. I think we actually start to worry about the ice cream man. Now we have to worry about the internet man.
That's right.
The man with the candy van.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, you mentioned pictures. I know that's like Snapchat's one thing that my oldest likes to use a lot with her friends and stuff like that. And so I had to make sure that she had her location settings off. So if somebody shared her picture, I'm not sure exactly how Snapchat's working. I'm not going to lie. I don't think but they can take screenshots and stuff. So I'm sure there's a way to.
But then you're notified. Yeah, you're notified if somebody takes a screenshot of your picture or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
But anyways, make sure it's turned off. So if somehow it does get shared, that location's not on your shot. So was it called geotagging or whatever? So. Yep. But it all boils down to you're on the platform. There's always a risk, and how much risk do you want your kids to take? Unfortunately, I just don't think that. I mean, I'd love to just take all the social media away from my kids, but I just, you're going to be a horrible parent, which I don't really care about. But nowadays, especially amidst COVID, that's the only way they keep track of their friends and stuff. So it's hard to kind of take everything away from them.
That's true.
And like I know my oldest was playing Roblox with her cousin who lives up in the Northeast, and there's another little kid, well, another person in the room. I was like, "Who's this?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't know. It's one of my cousin's friends." And I was like, "Okay." So I called my her uncle and I said, "Hey, who is this?" And he's like, "Oh, that's so and so." I was like, "Okay, so as long as you know who it is, I'm good with it. I just want to make sure." So it's just part of doing, kind of keeping on top of it, making sure that you know who they're talking to, who they're playing with, and what they're doing. So
yeah, and I think the scary part is, not to talk ill of anybody, but there's a lot of parents out there who have no connection with their children and what they're doing online, and going back to the human trafficking, and those people leading those human trafficking efforts, they got money, man. They have money, they have the means, they will track down who the most vulnerable are, and they will find where they are, and before you know it, you have a situation on your hands. And I just can't say it enough, man. You got to be involved with your kids and their online health, so to speak. So important, man.
Yeah, and people think that it only happens in big cities or in other countries. It doesn't. It happens everywhere. Everywhere. That's happening in small town USA and big cities everywhere. So,
yeah.
All right. So as we get ready to wrap this up, what are some of your like major tips, I guess, to kind of say, hey, how do you avoid the scams that are out there on social media?
Yeah, I think it boils down to almost just one thing, man. Is just taking an active role in your privacy. If you truly care, you can't complain about it. You can't complain about it if you don't do anything. So look at your settings. Look at, first of all, why are you on social media? Why are you on this platform? Really just have a nice conversation with yourself and say, why am I on Instagram? Do I need to be here? Am I getting enjoyment out of this? Is this a part of my life? Do I want it to be part of my life? All that, those personal choices, you need to talk to yourself about that. And then if all those answers are yes, then you need to look at your settings. You need to boil it down to what's important to you and how close you want to keep your information. If you want it out there, say we talked about LinkedIn. If you want to put it out there, you want to expand your network, then you're going to have to relinquish some of that privacy, and you really need to have that conversation with yourself and see if it's really important to be on this platform. Do I need it? Do I need to have a Twitter? Like I have a Twitter, I don't use it. Why do I still have it? You know what I mean? Like it should be shut down. Speaking of which, here, that's a note for me today. That's going away. Yeah, you need to really have a self-assessment and go in there and get rid of some stuff, or broaden your horizons and get on another platform. But for privacy, I really encourage people to look into their settings and check them regularly. And there's more than one thing on top of that. Use a password manager, man. Take care of your passwords. Don't use the same one over and over. Make them two-factor authentication, password manager. You gotta do it this day and age, 100%, especially with your banking and any close hold information.
Yeah, I know the one I have in my one manager, I have like 2 or 3 different folders that like personal, banking, work. I have like that kind of helps me keep it organized. So those are a great tool to have.
Yep. And not to belabor this anymore, but that password manager can be shared with your spouse. So say if anything was to happen to me, my spouse can get into all my accounts, shut them down, do all the banking that needs to be done. That those password managers can be shared with trustworthy individuals of your family. So that's something that to think about too, is if something was to happen to you today, how will your online presence be taken care of after your time? And you really need to think about that. It's almost like a life insurance type thing.
Yeah.
One thing we didn't really talk about, but as we close this out, remember, like whatever you put on social media, whether it's a political post or your thoughts or feelings, not everyone shares those same thoughts and feelings, right? So before you hit enter, I was taught in the military, like never send an emotional email. Well, I would say the same thing on social media. Never put out an emotional response to something you agree or disagree with. And one thing I'm starting to see with a lot more companies is that they're digging into your social media. They're looking at your past, and some even want to know your spouse and your family members. So be careful with it. Again, it's a tool. You can have fun with it. It's supposed to be fun and enjoyable, but be careful what if you're let's see here. If you're a right-wing conspiracy theorist guy, this. And you're going to apply, and the company is way left leaning. And they're a tech company. They're probably going to look into your social media, And again, once it's put out there, you can't take it back. So be careful, before you hit enter of what you're posting.
Well, nowadays, almost every company is going to ask you for your social media, so they can kind of do a social media scrub just to see kind of what you're all about.
That's right.
So, I mean, that's part of their due diligence. You're not going to want to hire somebody who's going to be bad for the company's image or negatively impact the company.
There's phishing. Yeah, there's phishing campaigns on LinkedIn too. You can tell, like, somebody will post this thing that is just itching for responses, very controversial. I'm like, why did you put that on LinkedIn? They're doing that for a reason. One, so they can get views and exposure, whether it's good or bad, they're going to get some kind of exposure. And then two, if you're responding on that, other people are going to see where you're leaning and what your views and, likes are. So you got to just pass it up, man. Swipe left, right, whatever that means. You got to keep on moving, and don't fall into the trap, because they're really jonesing for you to comment. And that tells you that will tell them a lot about you and who you are and who you work for and the culture that you're coming from, which paints a picture all in itself. So don't comment on that garbage, man. Just let it go. It's okay. Like, you'll live on. No big deal.
Well, see, I keep them guessing because on one platform I follow all the super conservative and do that stuff, and on another platform I'm super liberal, so they don't know what I am. So
there you
go. I think you need to talk to a shrink about that, Will. I think you just admitted split identity, going on.
I mean, two or three different personalities. It's all good as long as one of them shows up to work.
Exactly. Well, hey, thank you, Scott. Thanks for coming on. Hopefully our listeners and viewers got something good, of their social media, how to protect it, how to protect themselves and their kids. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott.
No worries. Always a pleasure.
Everyone, don't forget to check us out on our YouTube channel, youtube.com. Search the Coffee Squad Podcast. We'll pop right up. Go ahead and subscribe, give us a like. I know Tim, he's very active, so I appreciate that, Tim. You can listen to subscribe. Just go to coffeesquadpodcast.com. You can watch us. You can listen to us. You can subscribe to us there. Follow us. We have a new email sign up button on the Facebook page. So just go under more tab and then click on the email sign up. Start sending out some reminders and articles and stuff like that. Get you guys more involved. Next week, we are going to be discussing, are you an easy target, Jake, and how to be aware of your surroundings. So it'll be a good one.
Oh, you're saying I'm an easy target because I'm missing a leg. Really cool, Will. Yeah, really cool.
Well, I am too. I walk like a gimpy duck, so we're both easy targets. So
diversity training for you this week, man. Diversity training. Cool, guys. I appreciate it.
Later.
Have a good one. Later.
All right, guys. See ya.